Jason's life appeared to be a perfect picture. He had a beautiful wife, Emily, two well-mannered children, Lily and Jake, a cozy house in the suburbs, and a stable job. He always took pride in his family, considering it his greatest achievement. Yet deep down, Jason felt a faint tremor, like a small crack on the surface of a mirror, hinting at impending trouble. Emily was a driven and ambitious woman. She worked in marketing, and her job often required her to travel. Jason always supported his wife's career, but Emily's prolonged trips left him and the children feeling a void. This time, Emily had to go to Chicago for an important conference. The trip would last a week, and Jason knew that Lily and Jake would deeply miss their mother. He promised himself that he would find ways to make it up to the kids while Emily was away. One Wednesday morning, after Emily had been gone for 3 days, Jason was having breakfast with the children. Lily, his precious 6-year-old daughter, was absent-mindedly poking at her cereal, stirring the milk in the bowl with a sad expression. Jake, his 13-year-old son, caught in the whirlwind of adolescence, was glued to his phone, his fingers rapidly tapping on the screen. Jason gazed at his children, feeling a pang of sympathy. He knew how much they missed their mother. Then, an idea suddenly struck him. "Hey," Jason said, trying to sound enthusiastic, "how about we go visit Mom in Chicago?" Lily's head shot up, her big round eyes widening. "Really, Dad? We're going to see Mom?" Jake finally looked up from his phone. He shrugged, but Jason noticed a flicker of interest in his eyes. "That'd be cool, Dad." Jason smiled, certain that this was a fantastic idea. He wanted to surprise Emily, to see her face light up with joy when their whole family appeared at the hotel where she was staying. He wanted them all to share a beautiful moment together, a cherished memory they hadn't had in a long time. "Great," Jason said. "Then let's start planning." The atmosphere in Jason's house instantly became lively. Lily jumped up and down with excitement, constantly asking him when they would get to see their mother. Jake, though trying to act indifferent, couldn't hide his enthusiasm. Jason started booking plane tickets and reserving a hotel room. He chose a hotel near the conference center where Emily was attending, making it convenient for her to visit them after work. He also told the children to pack the essentials for the trip. While preparing, Jason tried calling Emily to inform her about their plan. He wanted to make sure she would be free and happy to see them. However, Emily didn't answer. Jason sent her a text, mentioning how much the kids missed her and asking her to call back when she had a moment, but Emily still didn't reply. Jason began to feel slightly uneasy. Emily wasn't the type to ignore his calls or messages. He reassured himself that she was probably just busy with work or caught up in an important meeting. He tried not to overthink it. That evening, the three of them headed to the airport. Lily dozed off on Jason's shoulder during the flight. Jake remained glued to his phone, either playing games or texting his friends. Jason looked at his two children, feeling a warm sense of happiness. He had a wonderful family. He had an amazing wife. He believed Emily would be delighted to see them. When they arrived in Chicago, Jason rented a car and drove straight to the hotel where Emily was staying. His heart pounded in his chest with nervous anticipation. He had imagined Emily opening the door, too shocked to speak, then pulling all three of them into a tight embrace. He had envisioned tears of joy, radiant smiles, and loving words. But when they were about 5 minutes away from the hotel, Jason called Emily one more time. Still no answer. This time, his worry deepened into a real sense of unease. What was going on? Why wasn't Emily picking up? Maybe she was asleep. Maybe something had happened to her. Negative thoughts crept into Jason's mind. Upon arriving at the hotel, Jason told the children to wait in the lobby while he checked in. He still wanted to keep the surprise until the very last moment. He approached the front desk and asked the clerk for Emily's room number, explaining that he was her husband and wanted to surprise her. The front desk clerk smiled politely. "I'm sorry, sir. We are not allowed to share guest information." Jason understood. He handed over his credit card. "Then could you call her room and let her know her husband is here?" She nodded and picked up the phone. Jason stood there watching as she dialed the number, waiting. Then he noticed her expression change. "Oh," she murmured, her eyes flickering toward Jason. "She's not answering." Jason tried to remain calm. Maybe she's sleeping. The front desk clerk hesitated. Then, after glancing at the computer screen, she spoke again. Actually, the system shows that she checked in with another guest. Jason froze. With another guest? His mind went blank. He couldn't process what he had just heard. What do you mean? Jason asked, his voice shaking. The clerk looked at him apologetically. I'm sorry, sir. I can't provide any further information. Jason stood still, as if turned to stone. He didn't know what to think, what to do. His wife? With another man? In a hotel? On a business trip? He forced himself to regain control. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was just a colleague of Emily's. Maybe. But deep down, Jason already knew the truth. Taking a deep breath, he steadied himself. He asked the front desk clerk to book him a room. He needed to be close to Emily. He needed to uncover what was really happening. I have to find out the truth, Jason told himself, no matter how painful that truth may be. Jason returned to the lobby, trying to act normal in front of his children. He didn't want them to sense anything was wrong. He didn't want them to worry. All done, Jason said, forcing a smile. Let's go up to the room and drop off our things. Lily bounced excitedly. Are we going to see Mom right away? Soon, honey, Jason promised. Once they reached the room, Jason told the children they could order food or do whatever they wanted. Then he left the room. Emily's room was nearby, just a few doors down. Jason walked slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. A wave of tension coursed through him, as if he were marching into battle. He stopped in front of Emily's door. He hesitated. He had no idea what he would find on the other side. Fear gripped him, but so did determination. He needed to know the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. Jason knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder. Still, silence. He knew Emily was inside. He could feel it. He sensed her presence, as if she were standing just behind the door, waiting. Jason pulled out his phone and texted her. I'm at the hotel. Open the door for me. She read the message but didn't reply. Jason clenched his jaw. He couldn't take it anymore. He needed to know. He had to confront her. Turning on his heel, he headed back to the front desk. He placed his room key on the counter. I'm locked out of my room, Jason said. Could you make me another key? The clerk nodded and began the process. Then, in a voice eerily calm, Jason added, Oh, by the way, could you add my wife's room to this key? We always do that when she travels, just in case. He smiled, keeping his expression as natural as possible. He didn't want the clerk to suspect anything. He needed this to go smoothly. She hesitated briefly, but then followed protocol. She swiped Jason's credit card, entered some details into the system, and handed him the key. All set, she said. Thank you, Jason replied. He took the key and walked back to Emily's room. Each step felt like fire beneath his feet. His chest felt heavy, his breath tight. He knew that whatever was behind that door would change his life forever. He stood in front of Emily's door. He inhaled deeply. Then he slid the key into the lock. The door opened. The room was dark, with only the bedside lamp casting a dim, yellowish glow. Jason stepped inside and immediately a strange scent hit him, a mix of cheap perfume and sweat. It made his stomach turn. And then he saw them. Emily was lying in bed next to another man. They were dressed only in their underwear, and the thin blanket did little to conceal the harsh truth from Jason's eyes. He froze. His mind refused to process what he was seeing. His wife, the woman he loved most in the world, was betraying him. Jason stared at Emily. Her face had gone pale, her eyes wide with horror. She said nothing, just looked at him like a trapped animal. The man beside her stirred awake. He blinked at Jason in confusion, then turned to Emily as if struggling to make sense of the situation. What the hell is going on? Jason asked, his voice raw. Emily stammered. Jason, it's not what you think. Jason let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Not what I think? Then explain, what is this? The man sat up. Hey buddy, I didn't know she was married. Emily shot him a furious glare. Ryan, shut up! Jason turned to Emily. So his name is Ryan, he scoffed. Did you even mention me to the kids? Emily said nothing. Jason's voice trembled. Emily, how could you do this? To me, to the kids? She met his gaze, her eyes cold, distant. Jason, you're overreacting. Her words sliced through him like a blade. Anger, pain, and disbelief churned inside him. Overreacting? Jason's voice cracked. You're in bed with another man and you tell me I'm overreacting? Emily sighed. Jason, you're a good father, a good husband, but I need... You need what? Jason demanded, his voice sharp. She said nothing. You need another man. Jason finished for her. She didn't deny it. Jason looked at her, and for the first time, he realized he had never truly known her. They had spent 15 years together, yet standing before him now was a complete stranger. The kids are downstairs, Jason said, his voice thick with emotion. Lily is so excited to see you. Jake even put down his phone to come here with me. Emily looked away, refusing to meet his eyes. You weren't going to see them, Jason said. Silence. You were hoping to get away with this. Jason's voice was steady, but his hands clenched into fists. You were going to go home, kiss the kids goodnight, and pretend none of this ever happened. Emily finally looked at him, her expression defiant, unapologetic. You should have called to let me know you were coming, she said. Jason blinked. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. You're blaming me? Jason asked, stunned. She crossed her arms, her posture arrogant, uncaring. If you had told me beforehand, this wouldn't have happened. Something inside Jason shattered. He couldn't take it anymore. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the room. He needed to get away. Now. Jason returned to his room where Lily and Jake were waiting for him. He tried to appear normal, but he knew his children had already sensed that something was wrong. What's wrong, Dad? Lily asked, her voice filled with worry. Where's Mom? Jason looked at his two children, his heart clenching. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to explain their mother's betrayal. I need to talk to you, Jason said, his voice tight. Something has happened. He told Lily and Jake about what had happened in Emily's room. He chose his words carefully, trying to be as gentle as possible, but he couldn't soften the painful truth. Lily burst into tears. Jake remained silent, his face pale. Doesn't Mommy love us anymore? Lily asked, her voice trembling with fear. Jason pulled her into a tight embrace. Mommy still loves you, he said, but sometimes adults make mistakes. He couldn't finish the sentence. His throat felt tight, as if he were choking on his own words. What are we going to do now? Jake asked, his voice shaking. Jason took a deep breath and looked at his children. He knew he had to make a difficult decision, one that would change their lives forever. We're going home, Jason said, and Mom and Dad are going to get divorced. Lily cried harder. Jake remained silent, but Jason saw the tears rolling down his cheeks. I don't want you to get divorced, Lily sobbed. I want us to be a family. Jason hugged her even tighter. I know, honey, he whispered, but some things can't be fixed. I promise you, I will always be here for you. I will always love you. He knew his promises wouldn't take away their pain, but he hoped that in time they would understand that he had done the best he could for them. The flight back home was long and heavy with sorrow. Lily fell asleep on Jason's shoulder, but he could tell she was having nightmares. Jake sat silently beside him, staring out the window. He didn't say a word, but Jason could feel the storm of pain and anger brewing inside him. When the plane landed at their hometown airport, Jason felt an unbearable weight pressing down on his shoulders. He knew that his life and his children's lives would never be the same again. He took the children home. The house felt emptier and colder than ever. He knew that Emily would never return. Lily ran into the living room and began drawing a picture for her mother. Jake went straight to his room and slammed the door shut. Jason stood in the middle of the living room, watching his children, and felt an overwhelming wave of despair wash over him. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to help his children get through this pain. But he knew one thing: he had to be strong. He had to be their anchor, their safe place. He had to help them build a new life, a life without Emily. And to do that, he first had to face his own pain. He had to overcome the betrayal. He had to find a way to forgive Emily so he could finally move on. The divorce process was quick and painful. Emily didn't contest anything. She just wanted it all to be over as soon as possible. Jason was granted full custody of both children. He had no intention of sharing custody with Emily. He believed his children needed him more than anyone else. Emily agreed to pay monthly support. Jason didn't want to take her money, but he knew he had no choice. He needed it to provide for his children. When the divorce was finalized, an overwhelming emptiness consumed him. He had lost the wife he once loved, the family he had cherished, and the life he had dreamed of. He had no idea what would come next. He didn't know how to build a new life on his own. But he knew one thing: he had to try. For his children. He had to show them that no matter how painful life could be, they could still survive. They could still move forward. Time passed. Jason tried his best to be a good father. He drove the children to school, helped them with their homework, cooked for them, and played with them. He tried to make up for what they had lost. Lily gradually overcame her sadness. She still missed her mother, but she also understood that her mother wasn't coming back. She began to adapt to her new life. Jake had a harder time. He became withdrawn and less talkative. He often argued with Jason and refused to cooperate with anything. Jason knew that Jake was struggling. He was trying to cope with the loss and the changes in his life. Jason tried to be patient and understanding. He knew that, in time, Jake would get through this phase. Jason also began to get involved in community activities. He joined a support group for single parents and found empathy and encouragement from people in similar situations. He also started dating again. He wasn't looking for a replacement for Emily. He just wanted someone to share his life with, someone who could love him and his children. That's when he met Sarah. She was an elementary school teacher and also a single mother. Sarah was intelligent, beautiful, and kind. Jason felt an instant connection with her. He and Sarah began seeing each other more often. He introduced her to his children, and they took a liking to her. Lily thought of Sarah as a second mother, and even Jake slowly began to open up to her. For the first time in a long while, Jason felt happy again. He had found love and hope in his life. He knew that, no matter how difficult life was, he and his children would be okay. One day, Jason received a phone call from Emily. She wanted to see him and the children. Jason hesitated. He wasn't sure if he should allow Emily to see the children. He feared that she might hurt them again. But he also knew that Lily and Jake needed to see their mother. They needed to understand that, despite what Emily had done, she still loved them. He agreed to let Emily see the children and arranged a meeting at a park near his house. When Emily arrived, Jason felt a slight tremor in his heart. He hadn't seen her since their divorce. He noticed she had lost weight and looked more tired. Emily hugged Lily and Jake. His children embraced her tightly, and Jason saw tears streaming down their cheeks. Emily spoke to the children, apologizing for what she had done. She told them that she would always love them and be there for them, even though she couldn't live with them. Lily and Jake forgave Emily. They understood that she had made mistakes, but they also knew she loved them. After the meeting, Jason felt a sense of relief in his heart. He knew he had done the right thing. He had allowed his children to heal their broken hearts. He also realized that he had forgiven Emily. He was no longer angry or resentful toward her. He had accepted the truth and moved on with his life. Standing in the bathroom, Jason looked in the mirror. He saw the cracks in the surface, but he also saw that those cracks couldn't break it. The mirror still reflected his image, strong, resilient, and loving. He smiled. He knew that his life would never be perfect again, but he also knew he could build a new, meaningful, and happy life. He had learned an important lesson. He had learned that no matter how difficult life was, he could still get through it. He had learned that even if his heart was broken, he could still love again. And he had learned that light could still shine through the cracks.